Yeah, by the time this out, your show will be out. Streams flow from a river. Congratulations on that. What's that been like kind of building up to that and now having it out globally?
Yeah, it's so scary. I think like honestly, it's I've been thinking a lot about, I mean, during like the whole press run, I think like I'm thinking back to like, when I first saw the breakdown and auditioned for it, and then the audition process was about like a month before I knew that I booked it, and then actually shooting it, and then a year later. And I think what's for me has been, I guess, like kind of nerve-wracking, a bit unsettling. It's like it's been a year, right? We shot in May for 3 weeks, May of last year, in Hamilton. And obviously I'm not the same person that I was a year ago. I'm not the same. I hope I'm a better actor, than a year ago. But so I think it's scary. I think it's scary to put anything out in the world. I think it's so honorable for artists of any kind to release something into the world. And then I think what I have to kind of remind myself is that it's no longer mine, really. It's a gift to the world. And I think and as much as I center myself in the narrative of all of it in my mind, I really am just such a small piece of this big production, and everyone behind the scenes, or just everyone that played a part of it, because it's film and everything, and especially the series is such a collaborative effort, and you don't have anything without it stands on the shoulders of so many people. And so I think at the end of the day, reminding myself that like it's just such a privilege to play any small part in any project, and especially this one. So it's been scary, it's been exciting, it's all of these things wrapped up. But that's sort of, yeah, that's what I'm feeling right now.
I mean, fair enough. And I know you did say a keyword there is vulnerable. It's very vulnerable to put out a work of art and not know what people are going to think of it. But I'm wondering, what do you personally hope that fans or viewers take from it after watching this as a whole?
Yeah, I think I just I want different things. I think of my like dad watching it, for example, because
Okay.
uh I'm like it I guess it says so many things to our families, and articulates them in a way that we couldn't previously. I think like, again, the power of like film and like movies to say like, I don't know what it is about it, but it I feel seen, or I feel, like I feel like the specificity of my experiences and feelings are like reflected back to me, and that's so powerful, right? So I think I think I hope I wanted to say something different for a personal audience, but I think as an audience, the audiences as a whole, like I'm really hopeful that it's so universal in its treatment of families and the strength of families, and breaking cycles of pain and generational trauma and cycles of abuse, and all of those things. And I think we went into it with such a delicate treatment of all of these things, a such delicate and like nuanced and careful treatment. And I'm so grateful that that's the kind of writing and directing that Chris, our director, writer, showrunner, put together, and that's the environment that he created. And so it just feels like this big hug for our families, and for children of immigrants and second generation, first generation immigrants. There's certainly the specificity and the nuances of those experiences, but at the end of the day, it hits at the core of humanity. Anyone can see themselves in a story like this, about family, the strength of family, and all of those things. So I hope that people just feel seen in the characters, in their perspectives, and it brings you to such a place of empathy, because we traverse this epic drama across time and different perspectives. And so you get to just you get to see people grow and grow up, and I think like to accompany that journey is such a privilege. And I think that's what I want people to walk away. People will cry and laugh, and I think it's we've put together something that's just a snapshot of life and the human experience, and hopefully that comes across.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I want to talk more about your character, Henry. What was that like kind of stepping into him, or was there something specific that drew you to this character or the script per se?
Yeah, I'll start with the script. The script, it was one of the first things I opened it up and I was like, it was so well written. It was so detailed. And I think just, yeah, the details of it that I was like, Chris just got so many things right. And maybe, maybe some people might not pick up on it, but I was blown away by how it was written. It felt so conversational. It felt very real. I think, I don't know if other actors would say the same, but for me, I think like there are some text that's like very hard to digest, whether that's memorizing it or anything. But I think like when it speaks like a human speaks, or when it speaks like to me in ways that like really, really resonates, then it just sits so easily. Like I can just pull it off the page um and it just floats, and so that was the experience of reading the script for the first time when I started to uncover Henry and talk to Chris about it. It was again like I met Chris for the first time and we both shared very personal, vulnerable stories. And um I think my understanding of Henry is because he's the youngest son in the family of four. Um it parallels a lot of Chris's life because that's the perspective that he's writing from. Obviously, he wrote in all of these characters. So I think with that came um, a real desire to honor like the story that he was telling from his perspective, to honor myself and I think younger versions of myself that saw so many parts of me also in Henry. Um, and so I think, yeah, going in with that honor and knowing that that's what I had to bring myself and the level of what I wanted to bring to the story and to the character. And so I think it was very easy to kind of drop in. It almost felt like I was like, should I be doing more? Or like because there are characters and things and things that you really have to pull out of yourself. It's all truth and it's all truthful. Um, but sometimes this process, it felt like the character felt so lived in because so much of Henry overlapped in my life. And I kind of joke, I still joke with Chris. I remember because it was so much of me, like I was auditioning for it and he kept me waiting for so long because, like I said, it was like a month-long process. And I was just like, if I don't get this, I was like, this is not even acting. Like, this is just my life. Like, I'm just existing, and saying these words that feel like they come from me. And so I think like it speaks to the writing. It speaks to, I mean, he put together an incredible writer's room, filled with BIPOC writers, and they brought their personal experiences to it. And you can tell, I think, from the treatment of the script and just from the very inception from script to screen, it was just done so well and with so much care, and he didn't sacrifice any part of that vision at any point of the process. And so yeah, I'm so proud to have been a part of that and to, like I said, play such a small part. But Henry is really special. He accompanied me, I think, when I was asking a lot of the same questions, and so of myself and my life and identity and my place in the world, and it just helped. He was just a friend, to answer these questions, and maybe not even answer them. I think that's kind of the cool part too, is like, am I ever going to have an answer for those, big looming questions? But he was along for an important part of that journey. Um, and he accompanied me for that. And that was really special.
And I know there's a lot of different topics covered in this, as you said before, but I'm wondering, on a more positive note, do you have a favorite moment or memory from your time on this set?
Yeah, there was one day, it's actually one of the most heartbreaking scenes in it. So, but
Okay.
let me tell you, it's positive. It was, I think, like the Friday, it was a night shoot, and we had about like 30 minutes to hard wrap, where like production was like, we're gonna have to like shut it down. And I had just waited for like 3 or 4 hours until my like one scene for the day. And it was with Brett, who plays Thomas, and the two, we were just kind of like, I don't know, we were playing checkers for like 3 hours just waiting. And then suddenly everything moves so fast. Then they're like, hey, we need you on set. Like, here we go, final touches. And then we're in a van. Um, and we had 30 minutes to like shoot one of the like the most heartbreaking emotional scenes in the series. And certainly one of mine, like the toughest. And I was just like, this is insane. Like we have, 2 or 3 takes maybe. And we got in there and everyone was shut out. It was me, it was our DOP Alan, Chris the director, me and Brett. It was the 4 of us in the van, and nobody could see kind of through the windows. Nobody knew what was going on because they like the walkies were off. Like it was just nobody knew what take we were on, or if we were rolling, or but there was, I think, just such, I was talking to Alan the DOP about this exact thing, because he was saying that like a lot of, from the crew perspective, a lot of times the crew doesn't read the script even, but in this case, every person on set knew the gravity of the story. They'd obviously read the script. Our cast was majority East Asian, and so there was a personal stake in everything that we were doing, and that showed, especially in that moment where like nobody was saying anything. Like everyone was attending to the moment. And we did a couple different coverages, a couple different takes, and that was it. And we got it, and we finished like right at 11 p.m. And it was so surreal. And we came out of the van, and everyone was like watching the monitors, but they didn't really know what was going on, and we got it, and that was just so special. I think like um credit Brad and for the performance, and that that allowed so much to thrive. But I think it goes back to the fact that we were given such a gift on this set to be able to be vulnerable in that way, to be able to make space for a performance like that to live and breathe. And so I think I was so grateful. And people, people will watch it back and be like, oh, that's great acting or whatever. I hope, I don't know. But I kind of just defer to, everyone around me that that enabled it and gifted us with such an incredible space, like I said. And so I think that's the thing too, like, actors get to come out and say whatever they want to say, but I think there's so much behind that's happening that we are supported by so well. And to this day, it's been probably is one of the best sets that I've ever been on.
Okay.
And it was because of the way that Chris led, and the energy, and the warm-ups. I think like Everything Everywhere All at Once, they had similar like team warm-ups before they started for the day. And so Chris led everybody, cast and crew, and just like stupid funky like stretches, and that that set the tone for the set. It was there are a lot of things, like our DOP got COVID in like the final days, and it was just insane amounts of stress, and he was like directing remotely, and like his first and second ACs were the hands on the ground still, but he was directing remotely, and stress levels were high. But amidst all of that, and even this the scene that I talked about with 30 minutes left, and Chris was still joking. He was like, oh, we don't need Liam's coverage, like I don't want to see him. And I was like, Chris, like I love you, but like I'm trying to break some hearts here. But it just never stopped. That was the energy that we brought at the start of the day, and it continued through it, and it lives and breathes through, I think, the story that we've been able to put in. And when we put it out in the world, I hope that comes through as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, apart from this, my last question for you, do you have any future projects that you can hint at or talk about?
Yeah, I'm working on a script which is in development. I'm really excited about it. I kind of go to it. I like don't consider myself a writer, but maybe one day I will actually like label myself with the title of a writer. So I dabble
Yeah.
for sure. And I've kind of hinted at Chris that like I want him to read it. But I'm like he's so he's so cool and revered. I'm like, just take a look. But I'm working on the script. It centers on kind of the tensions of hyper masculinity within Asian communities, and how that manifests also layered in kind of in a Western context. And so something that's certainly autobiographical. I think there's elements of it there that I'm exploring again in my life, that I think that this is being channeled into a project like this. But it's also something I think that I'm like witnessing in the community as a whole, as something that we need to unpack and start to look at and deconstruct and ask ourselves these questions of what does it mean, what does masculinity mean, and how can we restory that and redefine it. And I think for a long time, people that look like me haven't had an opportunity, a platform to be able to tell our own stories. I think stories have been told about us, and I think there's a voice there that needs to be heard. And I think that's why, to go back to streams, like it's why, and a story like this is so important. It's why the people behind who gets to tell the story is really important. So I mean, yeah, there's such a big part of me that wants to be a part of that, and service that kind of movement. And yes, that's through acting, and one day maybe through writing. So it's been, I feel like people talk about, they're like, oh, this has been like 5 years in the making. I'm like, that's crazy. But it's been like, I was like, probably a year and a half since I like returned to this script. And so, I think and you come back to it, and you bring to kind of what we're talking about off the top, like you bring another year's worth of experiences of life to it. And so that's hard too, I think, like, is anything ever done? That's a whole other conversation, because
Yeah.
you look at it and you're like, you can it be better, can it be this or whatever, and sometimes you just have to put it out into the world and release it, and be okay with it. But that's what I'm working on. That's a long-winded answer to say, like, I'm making a foray into writing. I think it's something that I'm really excited about. But I think, yeah, in general, it's what can service this yearning for being a part of something bigger, and knowing that I play just a small part, but you hope for some sort of incremental change in our lifetime, in the circle of influences that you have, and hopefully, yeah, that will be one way in which I can contribute my piece.
Well, it sounds like you're keeping busy, and I can't wait to hear the writing eventually.
Eventually, one day, yes, stay tuned.
Yes, but congratulations on everything again, and thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Gracie. Thanks for having me.